Welcome to episode 418 of the West Tigers podcast. A little bit of a different podcast tonight. You have me in the hosting chair, and the only guest I have, or the only co-host I have tonight, is Steve Stretton. How are you, Steve?
Mate, I've been doing these for 3 years. I don't know whether I'm happy being called a guest, but, hi, Gary. Nice to see you.
Yeah, a little slip of the tongue. You know that I view myself as the star of the show. So everyone's a guest for my show, Steve.
Taking control from... We'll start calling you Oprah.
Well, I don't have any prizes to give away, but the boys are all out tonight. I think Eddie's done a few too many podcasts this week after his podcast with Adele earlier in the week. So, Adele and Rob Bashara. I'll have two people annoyed at me now, which I thought was a pretty good pod. So if you haven't had a chance to listen to that yet, make sure you get out there and listen to that. I thought, Steve, you didn't get a chance to speak about last weekend's loss to the Warriors over in New Zealand. So I thought I'd start with your one word for that game against the Warriors.
Yeah, so I've been pretty busy. I haven't had much chance to think much at all about West Tigers stuff, so I'm not sure if this was read out on the pod last week. But
it probably wasn't. I didn't listen.
Yeah, well, that's where I'm at too. But my one word was demolished, and that we were just demolished at the ruck. We were demolished either side of the football, which simply means that when we ran the ball, we were absolutely smashed and driven backwards. And when we defended, their post contacts would have been off the charts because they were making. Our first contact was very weak, and they just had momentum in spades from the ruck, which is what the Warriors can do to you. And they did it to us all game, and we weren't a chance.
Yeah, my thoughts on our inability to win that ruck area of the game, you did mention it, is first contact. Do you think that's the primary area where we're letting ourselves down?
Yeah, our first contact's been poor. I was going to say for most of the year, but you could say for a couple of years. We just seem to bounce off that tackle. But even if we don't bounce off the tackle, the first contact is ineffective. We might grab and hold, but we don't slow the play down, or we don't stop the momentum. And they're making 3 or 4 yards, and then on top of that, after that first contact, we're not putting the big men on their backs. Like if we get them to the ground, we might get them down to their knees, or we might get them, they fall on their bellies, and then they're up. They're up so fast, and the play of the ball is quick, and then they're at it again before we've set our defensive line. And it is the basics of footy, right? It's if you win the ruck, you win the game 9 times out of 10. And the way you win the ruck is by slowing them down and not allowing them to get momentum. But I'll mention the other side of the football too, Gary, and that's their line speed. Their line speed was sensational. They came out on a mission, and they beat us to the punch when we had the football, or they beat us to the ad line constantly all game. And that's why our halves were ineffective, but it's also why we didn't get any momentum through our big fellas through the middle of the field.
So what do you put that down to, Steve? Do you put it down to the makeup of our team, or are you putting it down to the effort? Because I have my thoughts around it, but what are your thoughts?
Well, if we're talking about line speed, that in a sense has nothing to do with us, in that they just came out with enthusiasm and intent and carried it through for the 80 minutes. But what we then have to be able to do is modify our game plan. Now, what I would suggest, when you've got a team that is getting up on you incredibly quickly, you've either got to match them with that speed and intensity at the play of the ball, and try to get our play of the ball speed quicker so that they're not set to jump the line like they were, or you've got to slow them down a little bit by putting in kicks behind the line, or getting the ball out wide and beating their men rushing up fast and trying to get outside them. Now, we didn't have an answer. To answer your question, we didn't seem to have an answer to their line speed, and we didn't seem to have a plan B or a way of diffusing what they were doing to us, or coming up with a tactic that was going to overcome what they were doing to us.
For these two issues that we've just spoken about, first contact and line speed, to me are circular. So if you aren't winning the ruck and you're getting put on your back and you've got to slow play the ball, that's going to allow the defence to have quick line speed. That allows them to get up because they're already set back in defence. If you get a quick play the ball, they're on their heels and they can't get moving forward as quick.
So that's exactly right. And then their line gets disrupted, and they start to worry. They start to worry about their line, being straight and set and ready. And they start thinking, and their focus goes off that pace, and all of a sudden their line speed diminishes, rapidly because of that. But we didn't do it, Gary.
And fast line speed also helps you win the ruck because you're getting to the ball runner before he gets his momentum up, which means you're more likely to win the tackle. So it's very circular for me. I still think the key part for us is that first contact. I think we're lacking that really big destructive sort of ball runner. The guy that we were hoping Hunt would be, a guy who can preferably start the game along with Terrell May, who provides that point of difference that we don't have. And I think that's something we need to look for, Steve.
Mate, we're missing the good version of Royce Hunt so much this year. Like we needed him so badly out there last week, and I don't know what it is because he has played a couple of decent games in reserve grade. Maybe he's still carrying too much weight. He's not meeting those standards that he needs to meet. Maybe because of that, the coaches are frightened that he won't punch out the minutes that they want the bench players to be able to punch out. I don't know the answer, but we are really, because we've said it all season, Terrell May does an amazing job with the amount of work he does, but he's not the guy consistently to push through the line. In my opinion, Jack Bird's been coming on trying to play. He didn't last week, but try to play through the middle. He's not capable of doing that. That's not his gig. We're just missing that strong middle that's destructive and makes good post contact. Mate, can I mention the other thing? Like, you're 100% right. Like, the first contact's a real problem, but the other issue with us is also wrapping the ball up and stopping the second phase play. Now, it didn't kill us. That didn't kill us on the weekend. It has in the past. But not only does our first contact have to be strong, we have to work together in unison to halt the ball runner and get your hands around the ball to stop the offload, because that does untold damage to us.
Which is much easier to do, though, is when you're controlling the tackle.
Yeah,
if you don't have control of the tackle and you're struggling to get the player to the ground, which we are because we lose the first contact, it's easier for them to get their hand free. And it happens in reverse. When we have the ball, when you're getting put on your back constantly and you're struggling to win the tackle, it's harder to get your arm free. So it's interesting how all these things kind of tie in together to result in us really losing that ruck in the middle in that game on the weekend, which isn't that surprising when you look at it, when you have a look at that Warriors pack. Like, the Warriors, no matter who they have on the field, are always going to have a fairly big and damaging pack.
Yeah, and historically we struggle against a big pack, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a mobile pack. It's just the brute strength. They worry us. They get on top of us, and as I said at the beginning of the pod, we don't seem to be able to find a way to combat that during the game. Like we should. Obviously, the team knows that when we play a team like the Warriors, we're going to be facing a massive challenge in the middle. But when it does go against us, and when we do start to cave in the middle, we don't seem to have a way to address it, which is a worry.
Steve, I think you just pretty well explained probably one of the main reasons why we've lost 9 in a row to the Warriors now. Did you have any other takeaways from the game? No,
that's pretty much it. I got our first contact was poor. Look, I was really impressed with Adam Doueihi. I've just written that down. That when he went in to play first receiver, and the way he he ran the ball and straightened the attack. We look dangerous with him there. I'm really impressed with the fact that he's going to 13 this weekend. I didn't want to see him go into the halves. I didn't want to see Latu Fainu sort of pushed out of position. So I'm glad we've remained with Luai and Fainu having Doueihi in at 13 and playing that first receiver role is something that I think is going to help our attack. And we'll get to this later, mate. I might be jumping the gun, but especially with the team we've got for this weekend, where we're going to want to give good ball and good space to our centre pairing.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good segue because we've got Adam Doueihi as multiple talking points throughout the pod tonight. We're going to start a game of buy, sell, hold. We're stealing Eddie's game. He criticises my games all the time, so we'll use Eddie's tonight. So, buy, sell, hold. First question, Steve. Adam Doueihi's future is as a ball-playing lock.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to do a Declan. I'm going to hold it. I'm going to hold it because I do want to see more. And my reasoning is pretty simple. He's, as an attacking footballer, I think what he provides at lock as a ball player is really good for us, really helpful. He will straighten the attack. His experience is useful for us, I think. His kicking game is useful for us as well. So as a first receiver, I think he's great. He can hit the line. He's a big body, so he can play that middle role to effect, I suppose, but not, he wouldn't be your first choice. But the reason I'm holding it is because he's going to have to be strong defensively for 80 minutes in the middle. And I just hope he's up to that. Look, I think he's capable. He's made huge improvements, I believe, this year in defence. They're out wide, of course. So how that transfers when he's in the middle and making more tackles and tackle after tackle and effort after effort, well, we'll just have to wait and see. That's why I'm holding it. But I'm starting to be of the opinion, and I know this is not really a question, but I'm starting to be of the opinion that he probably is worth another year,
Which was my second question in our buy swap hold anyway.
Sorry.
No, that's fine, Steve. I even sent you the run sheet, and you're still jumping ahead.
Yeah, but I can look, mate. I'm 58. I'm tech poor, mate. I can only have one thing on my screen, and I've got the team sheet. So there's no way I can go backwards and forwards. So you just do your thing, and I'll jump in.
But for me, I have to agree with you fully, Steve. My concern is that defence. He's over the years, when defending, even in the halves, been bumped off in one-on-one tackles quite a number of times, front-on tackles. So not about his reads, not about effort plays. I think what has impressed me about Adam Doueihi this year is his increase in effort around defence. So at times I thought he's been very lazy, or when he's been beaten, he's hasn't chased in the past. I think all those things we've seen a vast improvement on this year. We did discuss extending him on the pod on Sunday night, and I gave the opinion I need to see a little bit more from him before I'd be offering him a contract. I need to see a couple of weeks of how he goes in that 13 role. Because looking at next year, Steve, looking at the centres that we potentially have for next season, do you see a spot for him next year?
No, not unless we have injuries, because like the centres that are starting this week in Toa and Taylor May with what, like, we haven't seen Taylor May in first grade yet, but what we have seen of him looks very promising. So in all likelihood, they're going to be our starting centres. We're going to have Macassini knocking down the door for a first grade spot too, from if everything we've been told about him is true and correct. And so he's there. So all of a sudden, a guy like Adam Doueihi, falls down the list a little bit. But what I like about him, and I don't know whether he's going to like this. This is the problem, because he has been very open and upfront in saying that he sees himself as a certain type of player and that's how he wants to play. But all of a sudden, I'm starting to see a guy who actually gives us quite a lot of versatility
Can play a lot of positions.
Yeah, in around our that's sort of versatility sort of means that, mate. But yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I can just see that he adds a lot because he can play a lot of positions. So if he's willing to accept that that's the role he's going to play, I think he's worth hanging on to. But I don't know whether he's going to think that. Like his press conference didn't really indicate a lot of enthusiasm around that, I'd say.
Yeah, it's interesting, that press conference. I guess at the end of it, I thought the start of it, he spoke really well. But as soon as they started talking about contracts and next season, he did bristle up a little bit. But I think that could probably come down two ways: that he's not looking to stay, or the club hasn't shown any interest towards him yet.
Yeah, or the other, he's just awkward talking about it and doesn't really like the media anyway. And I think he's a fellow that gets agitated pretty quickly. So I don't think it takes much to set him off. So yeah, he might have just felt uncomfortable with the line of questioning, really. So we might be reading more into that than what there is. Bottom line for me is, I want to see a little bit more, but I think he's worth. I think he's a first grade player that could be useful for us.
Okay. Next question. The Jerome Luai experiment at 7 is over.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, Jerome Luai will definitely stay at 6. Like Latu Fainu is our halfback. The only time that might change is if Latu Fainu gets injured. But even then, if we had Doueihi, bought Doueihi, and I'd play Doueihi at 7. I think we have to go a step further, and we have to say that the desire to be Batman experiment might be over. Like I think Jerome Luai,
Steve.
Yeah, it is a big call. It is, and it's not as negative as it sounds. Right? It's not as negative as it sounds. What I mean by it is Jerome Luai has brought so much to this club. There is absolutely no denying that he's worth every cent that he's getting at our club with his leadership, the standards.
So I'm just going to butt in there.
Yeah.
There is a fair bit of talk around the fan base starting to build that they're looking at that $1.3 million contract and thinking it's a little bit too much. You still think that's okay?
I think to have a state of origin player in the position that he plays in the spine, that's the sort of money we're going to have to pay. It's probably the top of the scale of the money we have to pay, but I think it is the money we have to pay. And he is $1 million plus player, in my opinion.
4 premierships, mate.
But yeah, 4 premierships. That's right. But the way he's playing, and again, I'll just add to it before I say that, his defence this year, like he can miss a tackle, right? But he's a smaller body, right? Of course, he's going to miss tackles from time to time, so he can miss a tackle. But that's, if you look at the tackle sheet and you see 3 missed tackles from him, or you see him fall off a tackle, that's not the value that he brings in defence, right? His clean up rate in defence is fantastic. Making the right tackle at the right time is spot on. He puts on a hit when it's needed to lift the team. Like defensively, he's really important to us. But his role in attack is just not working. It isn't. And to say that he's going to be the leader of the game plan or the attacking structure, it's just not working. Now, whether that's his inability or whether it's poor coaching, Jerome Luai this year, is that in attack, it just hasn't worked. Like I saw him when he was playing for Penrith, the way he would skip across field and then straighten up, and then throw a pass to a fast running back rower or centre or having the fullback come around and chime in and giving space to the fullback. And he did it beautifully. What he's been doing with us hasn't been working. He needs to accept the fact that he's not the guy to run the team around the park, but he needs to play a running game, but he also needs to have a bit of a game so that he can link with his back rowers and his centres and his fullback. The way, of course, this stuff where he runs around, he darts left, darts right, and goes around the circle, trying to find something there. It's just not working. It's definitely not working, and he needs to modify it. And I'm not sure if that's entirely his fault or the way that the team's been coached or the combination with other players. I'm not sure. But that's what they need to work on, and he needs to find where he's most comfortable, which is running and setting up outside men, and focus on that. And then I think you'll see us get the best out of him. But the thing with Benji that he has over Jerome Luai is Benji had much ability to beat a man in a variety of ways. Like Jerome Luai doesn't have that. He doesn't have the step that is ridiculous like Benji had. He doesn't have that turn of express pace that Benji had where he could skip out to the outside. And he doesn't have the flamboyance in his passing game that Benji had. So he's not going to create the opportunities into the crowd as well. And we just accepted that. That's what came with Benji. So we do need to accept that with Luai playing off the cuff, there's going to be plays that don't work, and there's going to be times he does try to find a hole, runs the ball and runs out of space and doesn't get anywhere. We do need to accept that, but I think he needs to work on. That's why I said structured eyes up footy, or a structured run. He has that ability to throw a beautiful, beautiful ball to a guy and put a man in a gap. Like you say this all the time, Gary. When you say, that you can tell a good player the way they make other players around.
Yeah, I do think that connection with Sam Fainu is starting to build quite nicely. I thought Sam was a couple of times on the weekend starting to hit some space outside Luai, and I think that's an area that they can really develop as well.
Yeah, we're gonna miss that this weekend. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'd forgotten Sam wasn't playing until just then. That is a big out for us on the weekend. That's a weak starting second rower partnership.
Yeah, honestly, we've got to be bypassing our second rowers a little bit. Like use them in tight to hit the ball straight in the harbour. We need to be creating space, going out the back and getting our centres good, clean, fast ball. That's what we need. That's where our attacking weapons or attacking prowess is going to come from.
Next question: Campbelltown Stadium should lose all games without the funding coming through. There's recently been an extension put on for Campbelltown to organise that $50 million funding for upgrading Campbelltown Stadium. In your opinion, Steve, if that funding does not come through by the end of this month, should Campbelltown Stadium lose all their games?
Yeah, I think they should. We're in a time now where we've got to make money. We've got to look after our members. We've got to look after our sponsors. We've got to look after our corporates. And you've got to provide a stadium that's up to scratch that will allow us to do that. We've already said that at Leichhardt Oval, if there wasn't going to be changes there, then we'll walk away from Leichhardt Oval, and there are changes coming. We've got options I'm sure Richo's already been looking into it. In fact, I'm sure he's already got money to upgrade Campbelltown Stadium. It's not fit for purpose. It really isn't.
And I'll save you a little bit because we have copped a little bit of heat from Magpies fans over the last week, Steve. So I'll save you a little bit. What is your preference? Your preference is that they get that funding, yeah?
My preference is that they get that funding for sure. I'm 100% of the belief that Campbelltown is an area that the West Tigers need to invest in and be in. But there's got to be a ground fit for purpose. And Gary, quite honestly, I couldn't give a rat's. If they don't like it, tough.
Yeah. Well, we haven't seen any of their comments anyway, Steve.
No, that's right. They're all hidden behind their little private chat.
Next question. West Tigers are a stronger club than we were 12 months ago.
Yeah, we are. We are a stronger club. And we're a better football team. And I know at the moment, we're the same number of wins as where we finished
equal
last year. Yeah. So we're equal with that. So it hasn't been as positive as we'd hoped it would be, and I thought we'd be better placed on the ladder than what we are. But there's a fight in this team that hasn't been there for a long, long time. And we are in most games for most of the game. We still haven't put an 80-minute performance together. We're still incredibly frustrating to watch. We're still got a long way to go before we are a really good football side. But we're getting there. We are a better team than we were. And we are roster management, even though it's slow, even though it's difficult, that have been dealt with, I believe, as best they could have been. Still not there, but it's better. You know, I've the last couple of functions I've been to with West Tigers have been absolutely outstanding. I couldn't have said that in the past. It wasn't the case. So every aspect of our club, we had to go through...
Much more stable.
Yeah, had to go through a horrible situation, but there is stability there at the moment. So, you know, it's not where we want it to be, and it's frustrating. I get as frustrated as anyone, but we're definitely better placed than what we were 12 months ago.
Jerome Luai is our most important player.
Oh, wow. Okay, I didn't read that one. Jerome Luai is our most important player. No, look, I'm going to sell that, but I'm going to say that's because I don't believe in this black and white stuff where we just say he's a very important part of our future.
So you're avoiding answering the question.
No, I'm answering. It's higher order thinking, Gary. I know you're going to struggle to keep up, but just do your best, mate. All right. It's important that we keep him, but it's just as important that we sign Appy. Right, and which hasn't been formalised yet. I don't think. You know, it's just as important that we lock down these young guys coming through and make sure we keep them happy. Like let's Macassini, for example, Latu Fainu, keep them in the club. It's just as important that we look for a strong front rower, who has impact. That's really important. So there are lots of players and there are lots of situations at the moment around recruitment and retention that are as important as each other. He's one of them.
The big thing for me, the reason I actually put this question in there is you have a look at the games he's missed this year and the clunkiness of our attack. Our attack's been clunky all season, but I think it's been worse in the games he hasn't played.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Right? That's a good point. He gives us a little bit of shape, you know. We tend to lack. We don't look like we've got much shape at all when he's not there. So yeah, he's very, very important in that regard. But you know, you take Appy out from around the ruck, and we sort of, you know, don't look too flash around the middle either.
And credit where credit's due. I think Taruva's been very good in that backup role as well.
Yeah, well, you know, it's not his preferred position, right? I think he's doing a pretty good job, all things considered. Yeah. And can I add? Sorry, mate. Can I add? With Taruva going to fullback and Charlie Staines, and I think I mentioned this before. Like I was very critical of Charlie Staines. Geez, he's played well since he's come back into first grade. He's really like been dynamic in his own. He hasn't been pushed back. He's earned his keep. I feel.
So a question without notice. This one's not on the list, so you haven't read this one, Steve. When Buller comes back, who do you keep, Skelton or Staines?
Skelton. Yeah. In saying that, I still think Skelton offers more defensively. His edge. Yeah, because I say his edge because it's not just his fault, but his edge has been weak. But I think that's a system thing, not just him. He does run in. He runs in when he shouldn't.
Yeah, he's made a few poor decisions.
We need him. Yeah, we struggle to make good yardage in attack, so we need him at the back starting our sets.
Yeah, and I said on the pod on Sunday night, I think Charlie Staines' improved yardage coming out of our own end is because we've got guys like Skelton and Taruva who are giving him a bit of a platform to use his speed on the second and third tackle of a set.
Yeah,
and he's able to get up the field quicker.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Yeah.
Last question. Benji Marshall will be coach in 2026.
Next question.
I thought that would be the answer that I'd get from you. We've got a number of players other than Adam Doueihi who we've already spoken about off contract at the end of this year. A number of younger players. I just want a quick answer on these ones, Steve, on whether you would re-sign any of those. We've got Fatape, who is already in negotiations overseas. I don't think he's signed anywhere yet.
Okay, well, if he's in negotiation overseas, that
pretty deep in the centres now, though.
Yeah, that's
which
true.
Is a strange one.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. There's probably no room for him.
And I guess that's the same for Felitti as well.
Yeah. I don't. I've never seen him show. I've never seen Felitti show anything yet. I'm not saying he's not a good footballer, but I haven't seen it.
Matamua?
No.
Naden?
Yeah, well, that's interesting because I was just looking at that when you mentioned Fatape and getting deep in the centres of Fatape or Naden. I'd probably go Fatape. I'd probably
really?
I think that there's something. I don't know. I've just watched him play. He's not winding down yet, but he's heading towards that. I think there's more upside long term with Fatape. So if I had to keep one of them, I'd be keeping Fatape. So that says that Brent Naden's a no.
So my opinion is that either of these guys, if you re-sign them, they're going to be spending most of their season in New South Wales Cup.
Yep.
And I think the experience that Naden has at that level and his ability to play multiple positions at that level, I think he's a better fit for playing at the New South Wales Cup level than Fatape is.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I suppose it's what are you looking for? Are you looking for an experienced campaigner to sit back there in reserve grade and help the young guys come through? And Brent Naden ticks boxes there, or are you looking to bolster your future and in the hope of bringing on future first graders? And then for me it would be Fatape. But I take your point.
Charlie Staines, Steve.
Who we got in the wing? No, I think he's done enough. Yeah, I think Charlie Staines stays. As long as he knows, willing to accept that and fight and try to know that he's going to have to really fight hard for his.
Yeah, an excellent guy to have. I think he's shown the last couple of weeks, well, last couple of months with Skelton being out for a while as well, what he can add to the team when he does get called upon. So yeah, I'd be looking to keep him as well.
And so can I ask you, Gary? Just a curveball there.
Host.
Yeah. Let's say Macassini, you have a conversation with Macassini and say, we might put you on the wing, see how you go on the wing. If that was the case and you could do that, and that means you had to get rid of Charlie Staines, would you do that?
Yeah, but I actually think Macassini's an out-and-out centre. His ability to beat a man and set up his winger on the outside, I think it's too valuable to play him on the wing. I haven't seen him play on the wing, and maybe he can go make a fist of it, but I think his attributes are much better suited to playing in the centres. It actually brings, he was a buy-sell hold that I actually threw out, so I might as well chuck it at you now that you've mentioned Macassini. Would you play him this year, Steve?
No, I wouldn't. Absolutely not. I think we're seeing, and when we give them too much ego, I think we have to be strong with these guys. I think we have to say, bide your time a little bit, learn your trade, prove yourself, and then bring them through. Now, I know there's going to be enough sort of thinking, but I believe that we're doing these guys a disservice when we bring them through the minute they turn 18. Well, look at what's happening. It's not working for us. So no, not this year. We're not going to be making the 8 this year. There's no reason to bring him through. Let him develop. Let him get a taste of what it's like playing all-age footy in Cup, and then see where he's at the beginning in the off-season and pre-season.
Yeah, he's played 1.5 games against men at this point of his career, Steve.
Yeah, that's right.
So, with that mindset, we have Tristan Hope, who's playing hooker at the moment. We have Hayward coming through, who is touted as the guy who's eventually now going to replace Appy. Are you looking at bringing someone in over him or keeping Tristan Hope for next season to give Hayward more time as well?
Yeah, well, it all depends how they want to use Appy, I suppose. And Benji has shown that he's not adverse to to playing Appy 80 minutes when he needs to.
He can't play 80 minutes every week, mate.
No, he can't. I agree, but when he needs to, he does, right? That's what's happened over the last couple of years. Tristan Hope is holding his own, probably in the last couple, probably a little better than I thought he would. So I think he can do a job. No, I don't. When you look at our priorities, I don't think that's a priority. I think, we've got Appy, we've got him, got the young fella coming through. I think we stick to that plan and we look at recruiting in other areas that are more vital for us, most particular front row forward.
So you see Hope playing a bigger role next year?
I think he can. He's not the best option. We put our utility in at 14. Then I'm not adverse to that as well. And that might be where, we're looking at Adam Doueihi, depending on what happens.
Tristan Hope, I see him as a guy that you're bringing him on. You're not bringing him on because he's going to break a game open. You're not bringing him on because he's really strong in defence. He has decent service. So you're bringing him on to do exactly what you said he's doing at the moment, is he'll do a job. He's not going to be a key contributor to you winning many games. He's not going to be a guy who goes out there and goes against tiring forwards and makes 2 or 3 breaks and brings you back into a game or allows you to pull away from the opposition. His role in the team is to give Appy a break, and that. I would like a little bit more of someone who's a bit more dynamic in that 14 role if we're looking at having someone play that role, and I think there should be someone there most weeks.
So is he contracted for next year?
I don't think so. I'd have to actually.
Okay.
Did he get an extension recently?
I'm not sure, because that could change. That does change my thoughts on it. But because what I just said then was, if that's we've already got Appy, we've already got him, we've already got the young fella, then that's what I wouldn't be adding to that. But if Tristan Hope doesn't have a contract, I wouldn't be adverse to going out to market to see what's add more to the hooking role. Then I'm all for that. But I'm saying it to me is enough. We don't want to be adding to that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes really good sense to me, Steve. He is actually off contract at the end of this year, according to Zero Tackle.
Right.
I looked it up while you just spoke. So, yeah, it's probably a position we could look at. Filling as that backup hooker.
Yeah, we could. We could look, but you got to find the right guy.
Now, let's move on to the game on Sunday. Exciting day. Get to go back out to Leichhardt. There's actually more than one game of football on because the NRLW is on beforehand. So at least an afternoon of football, well, starting at midday anyway, out at Leichhardt Oval. Looking forward to getting out there, Steve.
Oh, I can't wait. Can't wait to get out there. And I'll be out there to watch the NRLW and then watch the first grade. I'm really confident we can get a win with the men anyway. Who are the girls playing, mate? Do you know who are they playing?
Honestly, I haven't had a look.
So I don't know. I know they're trying hard, the girls, but they're struggling a little bit. But I definitely think we've got a good chance with the men of getting a win. So it could be a good afternoon out there. So
come up against the Gold Coast Titans. Your thoughts on their style of play and their danger players?
Look, well, they're coming last for a reason, right? They're very inconsistent. So the first thing I'd be saying to our team this week is improve your discipline, cut your error rate. We've got Ashley Klein in the bunker again, right? 80 minutes. Now, if you do that, they have shown all season. Now, in saying that, every team in this competition can win on their day, and they have the capability of beating us, that's for sure. I think we've got to, we talked about this earlier as far as in reference to the Warriors, I think we've got to really go out there with an intent to have quick line speed in defence. We've got to get up on their 5'8" and halfback in Foran and Jaden Campbell. Jaden Campbell will rip us to shreds if we give him time and space, right? If we turn him back inside, right, we'll cut down the effect that he can have on a game. But the other reason we've got to have amazing line speed is we've got to stop Tino playing lock, and we've got to stop David Fafita when he comes on off the bench, because we've shown, like I go back to that Souths game. I can't remember who it was, but they just had one player, one with their front rower who just
prop forward.
Yeah,
I can't remember his name either, Steve.
The rest of the pack we handled really well, but this one guy, he just tore us to shreds. And to set now, if we let Tino and if we let David Fafita get momentum and beat us at the defensive line and get post contacts and get the ball away, we'll struggle because we don't need that whole pack to do it. I think we match up pretty well across the park, but those two guys, if they're given room, we'll see something.
I see it coming down to two things for the Gold Coast against us. Is they have two components that we never match up well with. They have big forwards with a bit of mobility, a bit of speed, who run the ball hard. We never handle that well. And they have some classy, speedy outside backs, and in the halves with Campbell playing in the halves. So they're two key points that I think we need to be really aware of on the weekend. We need a game plan for that, because they're two attributes of teams that we never do well against.
No, we don't, especially the big forward pack. Mate, the other thing I mentioned that we tend to struggle against the Titans, and that's Kieran Foran in his kicking game. Kieran Foran usually kicks us off the park. And from memory, I'm thinking it's more his short kicking game in the goal line. You know, we've got to be aware of that. You know, we must be aware of his prowess with his short kicking game and get up on him fast, give him less time to think and get his kick in. And that goes without saying for long and short, but particularly his short kicking game, because he usually, you know, has a game out of the box in that regard.
And I think Luai's short kicking game's been pretty good this season, and it was pretty good in State of Origin as well. But I think we are being let down a little bit by our long kicking game. I thought, though, Adam Doueihi playing in the halves last week added to that. It's an extra responsibility for the 13 role, but there's an opportunity there for him to do a little bit of long kicking as well.
Yeah, I think out of that 17, he's the best downfield kicker we've got on the field. So we've got to use that. I think. You know, look, as far as how do we attack the Titans, like I haven't watched them enough to sort of pinpoint areas of weakness in their defensive line, really. But I think we just need to focus on ourselves. Like we've just got to play. One, we've got to win the ruck. We've got to try to get fast play the ball. We've got to try to land on our stomach so we can get up. Dynamic centres, one out on each edge. We've got to get good ball to them, you know. And so that means our halves need to get fast ball. But if they're going to run, they need to straighten and then pass out so that we don't run those centres out of space, because we've seen what Stafford Toa can do when he gets an inch of room. Right? He's really dangerous, and that's what I saw. I didn't see a lot, but just from the highlights, he ran a couple of beautiful outside in lines, right? So I imagine they've been practicing that, and we've got the ability to score points out there.
And interesting, speaking about both our centres, I think they're guys who play well with early ball. Stafford Toa plays his best football when you get him the ball early and he's able to use that left-hand fend and then draw the winger in to set up a Taruva on the outside. It'll be Staines this week, but it has been Taruva on the outside. Taylor May's a guy I think will benefit from early ball as well, because he's got that nice footwork. He can hit a hole, but I think he's got some really good footwork we should be able to take advantage of as well.
And like, this is Taruva's third week back at and sort of be there scooting through the middle. But I'd like to see him, you know, playing, you know, like Jerome Luai plays a little bit and trying to get some shape out. Back rowers going through as decoys and getting our halves linking with Taruva Karaman, who can then link to one of the centres. You know, that there's possibility, you know, of good yardage out there, I think.
Yeah, I don't know if he's got that in his game yet. It'll be interesting to see if he can add it. I think that's why he's a very different style fullback to what Dream Buller is. Dream Buller's almost plays as an extra ball player, whereas Taruva I don't think has those ball skills, so he's playing a lot more through the middle.
The thing that worries me, mate, is the bench. Like Sione, we know Sione and Whanua are going to do great things when they come on, but I really wish one of them, probably Fainu, was starting rather than being on the bench. And I'm concerned about Jack Bird. Jack Bird has not been playing good football. I really liked what Jack Bird was doing early in the season. Last week, he was terrible. Everyone can have a bad game. That's forgivable. But he seems to have lost his form as the year's gone on.
He spent a fair bit of time last weekend in the centres, Steve, and I think his time as a centre's over.
Probably, I imagine, unless he has to play in the middle. I'm not sure that's his spot either.
You spoke earlier about us needing the straight in the attack, especially our halves. What do you think Adam Doueihi brings to our side in that regard?
Well, I think two things. He's going to push Jerome and Latu wider. That's the most obvious one. So having pushes out those guys a little bit wider, a little bit deeper, and gives them room and allows us to ball play too wide of the ruck, right? So off to their third defender, attacking their third defender. So there's that. But also he's got an innate ability now, seemingly, to know when to run across field. Like I don't know what it is. When he's out in the centres, he doesn't seem to be able to pass the ball at all the way. So I think when he does that, what it does, I mentioned this before, and straighten up as well. So in effect, it straightens the whole attacking movement. So that's definitely what it brings. But it brings an added take him, and if he passes, well, he's got to make sure he hasn't come in too early, which would create a gap, right?
So having a look, Sunday afternoon, game's over. What do you think? What's the result going to be, Steve? We're going to get up?
Yeah, I think we are. I think we will win this one. And I think we're going to win it pretty comfortably.
And does Hasley get sacked next week?
Well, he doesn't.
Sacked straight away. Apologies to Yachty. We've run out of time. I've got footy tonight. We've run out of time for Yachty's quiz this week, so we'll get that back in next week. I'd also like to apologise to Eddie Otto. We've had him in the green room waiting to come on all show, and we've run out of time to get Eddie on.
I think everyone. Declan, Joel, and Nick are sitting there as well, I think.
Yeah, I just kicked them out of the green room as well, so they had no chance of coming on. Thanks for joining me tonight, Steve.
Thank you.
And thank you, everyone, for listening. Sunday night, we'll have another pod, a game day pod, coming out after the game. So make sure you look out for that. That should drop sometime on Monday morning. So speak to you all on Sunday. Have a good weekend.
Cheers, everyone.